My name is Linda Nesvisky, and I'm the artist now who has the exhibition on the boardwalk, and I'm very delighted to be showing. This exhibition actually, believe it or not, there was a period before COVID. The date for this exhibition was going to be planned, and we had no idea what was going to be coming. And what came, of course, was cataclysmic. Usually when an artist has an exhibition, they like to invite their friends, maybe the press, and likes to discuss the work. And of course I couldn't do any of that. And I was really surprised because I live, so to speak, around the corner from the gallery, literally, in the very first apartment. People would knock on my door and were asking me questions. And then I realized, well, you know, maybe we should explain it because there was interest. And so hence, this was planned, and I'm very happy to be doing it. And I'm also be happy to sharing this with my family and and friends of mine who are asking me about it, who would like to see it, and of course are not permitted to come into Rydal right now because of our lockdown. So I want to be discussing the work, the artwork, and telling you a little bit about myself and my background. Okay? I actually am an artist. I had trained in Pittsburgh. I was born in Pittsburgh. And I trained at Carnegie Mellon and the University of Pittsburgh as well. And then I and my very young family, my two daughters, my husband and I, we moved to Israel. And we moved to Israel around the cataclysmic time that we're going through right now, because there were these several assassinations, Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy, you know, and it's just JFK. They were earth-shattering, and we decided this was not a place where we wanted to raise our children. So that's how we got there. We didn't go necessarily for Jewish religious reasons, but for cultural values and, you know, being with a country. And to this very day, I'm still very proud of Israel, because their rate right now of people with the COVID is one of the highest in the world for curing. Not most, but many of their residents are on their way to get or have received their shots, and the rate is low, and as it should be. I think part of the reason is I'm trying to analyze why that happened and how could it happen in Israel. Israel is a nation where the army is a very important factor in everyone's lives. So I think they're used to talking with people, rounding up people, and people turn in for news all the time. So it had that. It does have also socialized medicine, which I myself do believe in. It's a very just way. If you wanted to have a different system, private insurance, you could do that. But there always was the medicine and the clinics in all the neighborhoods. You can go for help. So it had all the right conditions the way it should be for preparing for what we're doing today. And of course, we never had the rioting. I was just amazed. I was watching TV, the Senate hearing. I heard now that I think there are 4 people that were killed. I thought there was 1. I know, it was on the news today. It's just an amazing development. So here we are in a nice, safe little place, and we're discussing the art. So that's a little bit of how I got here right now and my background a bit. And we'll get into that more as we go. I have this exhibition kind of sorted out in different categories, different themes I like to work with. Here I am now on the way, we're facing the entrance to the dining area, to the main lobby. And I'm going to be discussing, as we go down, the pictures on the wall. And you'll notice across on the right-hand side, we're seeing it now a little bit. Yeah, these are the pictures of the Job series, the Book of Job. And on the other side, I have different themes. I was interested in line and gestural drawings, as they say. And so I would just put on music and move my hands the way that the rhythms go. And that's how I began this series here. So that explains that, I believe. Okay, so how shall we begin? We can begin with Joan over the left hand. Okay, the right hand. Very good. Yes, This just shows you how simple you need to make art, okay? Here, it's a pencil and paper, period. No fancy tools. And here, I love to work with music. I like to let my wrist flow with the rhythm. And so this is what I call part of my gestural series. I did these in drawings, I did them in pastels, and I did them in prints. So that explains this as well. By the way, this series, when I began living in this area, I lived in Melrose Park, I had a very historic home founded by the Tyler School of Art, Boris Bly. I had no idea because I was really new to this region. I don't understand how that space escaped everybody because the studio, my studio that I had there, is bigger than my whole apartment now. Now I'm reduced to a little section of my bedroom. So it's quite a come down. But I had a press and I had a lot of space and it was terrific. So it was much easier, yes. So here we are now, another pencil drawing on the wall. By the way, some of these are not in the show per se, but most of them are from this particular show. Okay, so we're looking now at the red one, and that is not the red, yeah. That is actually an etching. How can you tell an etching? People get so confused by all the terms one uses. Etching, dry point, woodcut, lithograph. You can always tell an etching. You can look at how the paper is indented. That's the thickness of the plate. So look at the border all around the picture, and you'll be able to see the biggest clue as to why it's an etching. Should I be pointing with a? Okay. So, and I love an etching. I love to incise my work and fill it up with color and then wipe off the top layer and put it through a press. I had my own etching press, which I sadly had to get rid of when I came here. It was for me like losing a limb. I really was quite forlorn about that idea. But that was just part of it. I mean, I moved here because I wasn't getting so good as to my health, my back, my sense of balance. So the time was coming, and thus I began the move. But this was my etching period, and I have several in this theme, sometimes monochromatic, and sometimes working in color. So yes, so here we are in color. This is actually still a drawing, okay? It's done with pastels. And again, it's the same idea as the gestural strokes on the pieces of paper. I let my hand flow just with the music. And then the rhythms start to evolve and the colors start to evolve and you can build a composition, but it's kind of free form. I just don't know where I'm going to go until I get there. And I understand that's the way Mondrian worked too. He has this famous painting, Broadway Boogie Woogie. He liked to put on music and he would like to create his pictures too, and you can understand why. Okay, this is the very first one. Now these two right now, I don't know why I'm pointing, but these two, the one, we're on the blue one? Yeah. Okay, so they're very playful. I like to work with basic form and the relationship to each other. And then I have this series, it's really meant to be seen in one long line called Octet. And you can see how playful it is. And sometimes I even add color, like it's just brush strokes in each one. This is not, but people loved it, and I happen to sell a lot of them, actually. So that's a little bit of a story about the octet. Okay, and the next one is just the quartet, and the same idea. Again, I'm sorry, it's not in the show, but I have them, if anybody wants to see them in my apartment. I do have artwork stored in my apartment. And so this is an etching. It took a lot of time to ink this plate. And I love their intense look as how they're really into it with looking at each other and playing their instruments. And so that's quartet. Okay, we can go on to the next one. So as far as the book of Job, first of all, let's discuss what that means. In Hebrew, usually every name in the Bible, or most names, they have meanings. So if you know the meaning of the word Eov, which we would call Job in English, because with the yud, it's a sound that in English comes out to Job. In Hebrew, it's Eov. Okay, that's his name. And so people think it means suffering. However, that came after the fact of the book, not before. So before that, it was a pensive, God is here, God is surrounding us, God is all around. And that is the meaning of his name. And that was discussed very beautiful in this book that I love. This was an expression, this was translated, his name, by Jonathan Sarna, a name very well established within the Jewish book world. So Eov. And next to it, there is a little metal plate of the actual work of angels, as they're really to be morning stars. And I thought, well, what an incredible idea, having angels announcing, the morning stars will ring out in joy. But it's actually from the book itself. It's actually from Job. It wasn't the artist's idea. The artist was, they called him a luminary artist. He claimed to have seen visions. He lived in the 1860s. I'm sorry. He lived to be 69 years old. Okay, mid 1700s is when he began to work. He did the etchings, which are quite an unusual way to etch. As you can see on this left-hand side of the angels, that is the plate, and it's in size. In other words, the plate is covered with wax, and you draw on it, and depending on how long it sits into a solution of nitric acid, very toxic, very dangerous. And he had his studio in his bedroom. I don't know how he made it to 69, especially when it's so, the work is so deeply bitten. And not only, the traditional way of etching is just what it sounds. You etch into something, okay? This one happened to be a zinc plate. But Blake worked differently, a very unusual way. In other words, he inked everything else away. He opened up, and all that was left was raised letters, so that we would roll it on with a roller rather than putting it in with, into the plate and then wiping off the top layer. It's a very unusual way of doing it, and I can imagine there must have been awful fumes in his bedroom, but that was his way that he did it. This whole series, the Book of Job, they're divided into 3 books, wisdom books they call them, and those dealt with Ecclesiastes and prophets and Job, and they're put together and categorized as the wisdom books. And the cover I just loved. Okay, this is in the story of Job, where he's really despondent. He's going downhill. He doesn't know what to do, and his friends come thinking they're going to offer him advice. Some friends you can just do without. So they really were not helpful, and they wound up mocking him. And his wife doesn't even understand why he's listening to them or why he's doing it. She says, forget about it. Forget this whole involvement. What are you doing? They had lost so much, and Job was so despondent, and he was suffering. And so here they show his friends pointing at him and mocking him. So that is the beginning of the series. And this version, the wisdom books, are by Robert Alter, who translates the Bible in a more modern day language, which is very good. So this one that we're seeing now, God's creating man. So dramatic, okay? And this actually is the welcoming picture of his Book of Job. And on the cover, we have Job again. And the bottom, you see your plate is kind of divided into thirds. The bottom third is, earth, okay? And the middle section is how God created the world, and the 7 days of creation. And on the third part, these are the morning stars, and they're beginning to announce Job's realization of what he was doing wrong. and he's getting it. He's actually getting it. So this is, I think, wonderful painting. This artist, William Blake, I actually made a trek to England. I made several trips with my husband and I. And at Oxford is the Ashmolean Library. And they have all of these Job drawings and prints in their collection. And I was so pleased you could actually ask to see them. You could even handle them. They would give you white gloves, and you could actually see them, hold them in your hand, look at them directly in front of you. For me, it was thrilling. And it's so nice to know that it was possible, is possible to this very day. Okay, now this is the actual plate itself. There are different metals you can use. Zinc is one of them. Zinc is good because it's one of the most affordable of the metals. The one I used to like was copper. And copper, I've seen the price of copper go up so much that this is a small plate. My bigger plates, it really, the plates were almost unaffordable at this time. So, and I think I gave all of those things away when I was, traveling, moving to Israel. So it was really, think about the money I lost just on the metal alone. Okay, now the other one, this is like part of the story of Job, the very beginning. You can see numbers on the plate. This is chapter 1, verses 1 through 2. And I couldn't decide if I wanted to do it in English or in Hebrew. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do both. I'm going to do both. And so this is the image I chose for the beginning of the story. And it's told like a fable. Like we're saying, once upon a time, there was a man and his wife, and he had 10 children, he had 3 daughters, he had 7 sons, and they're faceless, because it could be any family. So this is it. Writing the text was a really hard task for me to do, because, and you have to remember that when you print, your plate has to be in reverse. So in English, which you would normally, of course, go from left to right, you're having to write the English from right to left. And then the Hebrew, vice versa. Hebrew, you go from right to left, and it doesn't work. You have to have it in reverse. How did I do this? Because it was tricky, and you can't erase your mistakes like you would pencil and paper. You have to carve out the letters, and that's a really big job. And then helping it to integrate to the same color and size again. So I tried to get it right. So I would do it on plastic, on plexiglass, and then I would flip it over, and then of course I would be able to see everything how it was going to be in reverse, and that was my technique. So, okay, but it's just told like a fable. It's like a timeless story, and like once upon a time there lived a man and his family. So that was one of my 20. There I have 20 particular prints in this series. I have another set of series which are larger, and they're more painterly and a different printing technique. And those are in the collection of the Skirball Museum, which I'm very pleased about. And those are monoprints, and they're only one of a kind. These are etchings so that you were able to print more than one of each one. So that's what I use. So one of my dreams is to try to find some support somewhere. I would love to see this Job series as art books for 20 pages of these etched images put together and bound and sold. That would be a dream come true for me. So this is the story. Okay, so now I picked, for example, 1, and this is where his friends are mocking him, okay? And you can see poor Job. He's standing upright. Once there was an upright man, and then you can see him fading. You see the little arrow. His head is just dropping down. He's getting very sad. He said, I am as one mocked by God. The just upright man is laughed to scorn. And so, okay. The other one, just like the family was faceless, Job is also, I have symbols. I don't have God. First of all, if you're really religious, you wouldn't even be allowed to use that as an image. I have God represented by binoculars. And here is when God sends his emissary to check on Job. Job doesn't understand. He thinks he's doing everything right. He gives to charity. And why have they selected him, of all people, to the things that were going to befall upon him, like boils, like the destruction of his home and family? He doesn't understand. And the word Satan, okay, one thing said that's so he sent. But the word Satan during those times, this perhaps as early as the 8th century, we don't really know the exact timing of Job, is that he's sent to try to communicate, and to receive advice. So he sends Satan to be the emissary. And so this is what this is. Have you considered my servant Job? Well, let's test him. Let's see what's going to happen. And that's how the story begins to unfold. Okay. Now, this is, believe it or not, my minimalistic studio. I have this in my bedroom, part of my minimalistic sized bedroom as well. Very small. You can see also when I'm doing my collages, I have trays of papers. They're separated by colors. At least they begin that way. And then it gets all jumbled up. But these are the papers. I have some drawers that are holding my artwork, my prints, and my collages, and some drawers that are actually holding the, the supplies, like my paper, my colored papers, and so forth. So that's that little corner of my studio. And to the next image, you're going to see some of the papers I used. Many of the papers, because I printed for so many years, no matter how good you are as an artist, you're going to have these prints. Some of them don't meet your standards. They're not looking quite right. Yet, I hate to throw them away because there are certain parts of it that are really in very good shape and condition. So I save those images and I would work with them. So that if I can say with this particular series of collages, I like doing collage. I like it because I love color, and you can use many colors, and it's kind of spontaneous too, like the actual printing material. So these are what I'm working with, some of the trays and trays and trays of papers that I have that I use to make a collage. Next. Okay, getting back to where I lived in Israel, I had a very dramatic section of Jerusalem. I lived in Jerusalem's old city, and I would work outside the walls to go to work. Just across the street, there was there were government-sponsored studios. I was lucky to receive one, and this was called, in Hebrew, Hotzota Yotzer, which is it was a get-together about 22 artists, and we worked in the same area. So I had to go out by way of Jaffa Gate. That was the nearest one to me from the Jewish quarter. This gate, of course, I work best in abstract form rather than realistic. I just didn't want to draw a picture of the entrance, but I wanted to make the feeling I get from going through this massive gate. You feel like you're like maybe a dwarf compared to the size of the opening of the wall. And so this would I would return to it, and I would leave in the morning to go out to work in my studio. And so this is called, in fact, the gate. So what I'd like to do as much as I can on one plate. I find multi-plates too technical and boring, and so I prefer to apply color to the plates before I print it, not afterwards. And then it's more like a coloring book, just filling in the lines, and I don't like that so much. So this is, for me, a gate. And this is one of the 12 gates, I think, in the old city itself. I lived, of course, in the Jewish quarter, and there were the Muslim quarter, the Christian quarter, and the Armenian quarter. I was in the last home in the Jewish quarter before the Armenian quarter began. Getting back to collages, so I'm going to start now with some of the pictures I did while I was working. Sometimes I would buy papers, like beautiful printing paper with this lovely Japanese text on it. And around it I had things that I had saved, like a print of with the dots, for example. That was actually a print that I had that I could cut out and tear and use. Too nice to throw away. And so I would save those as well and then create colors and create patterns with them. So they really are personal, the collages. And as I say, when I no longer could print using my press, I don't mind. I like this as well. I like the art of collage. And for me, we'll go on to the next one. I happen to I prefer to tear the paper rather than cut it out. And sometimes we can see that. And so these are parts of my print. The little blue part, these were ink jar boxes, and this was the Higgins series of inks. And the ink inside was orange, but I made it blue. First of all, I made a photogravure of the actual box top, and then I enlarged it so that what you have in the end is a photogravure. And this was the technique in printmaking that they did in the early days of newspaper, when there would be an image in the paper. It was usually a zinc plate, and the image was made photogravure, which means rather than using various etchings and things, you could photograph what you wanted, put it onto an epoxy, onto a plate, and whatever is exposed is going to be little tiny dots. And these little tiny dots can actually hold ink. And hence I have that as part with the blue ink. And the various colors too. And okay, so what I like about to do the paper that I use, I like to use words once in a while. And at this time I like the word beyond. I saw that in the newspaper. It was Beyonce. But I just made it look like a D, the ending. And then I thought, well, now I would like to have some words saying, beyond. I said, I'll do beyond the blue horizon. I printed these words rather than onto paper. I printed it onto the paper there, in fact. I printed it on a rice paper, the blue, and it worked. The printer was able to do that thin paper, and I was able to do it. So then I would tear that about, and use that as part of my plate. So anyway, they're a little bit more complex than what you would normally see. And at the top of the page, you can see the edge of the paper, this blue, the raggedy edge. That was, I mean, by tearing or saving handmade paper, and which I wasn't involved in whatsoever. But you would have that look as well, rather than just a simple cut shape. So that was it, beyond. Okay. And so here, sometimes I would use images that I purchased. I was visiting the Wright Brothers Museum in Dayton, Ohio. The theme of Ohio is first in flight. And you see it on the stamps sometimes, and it's like they use that as the motto of their state. So here you have the brothers themselves, and this is a letter that's been canceled. And I was able to get that in their gift store. I figured I'm going to incorporate this into my artwork somehow. So that's how that one began. And then some of these just plain dyed papers, they were from my prints. So I was able to also control the colors. So everything is been pulling together just from what I had around in my drawer. Okay. Yeah, you can see the textures of the plate. Some of these textures, it shows the wiping. When you wipe a plate and you don't wipe it very clear, it has like a nice kind of shading. So I made good use of that. Okay. Now, this is one that I don't normally like to use words in my artwork for messages. I just do not. But this one, I definitely felt I had to use a message. And the message is, the people have spoken. And this is before all the happenings today. This happened to be, I was still, and I even more so, against the electoral vote college. The people have decided. The person who wins is the victor. That's how it is in most countries. You don't go around afterwards and asking people in each state well, who do you want and what do you want? And so that becomes too out of line in today's world. Maybe it was in the colonial period in America, but it doesn't work anymore. You have too many different people, and so they have to vote, and their votes have to be counted. And when you count them, and the winner is the person with the most votes is the victor, I think that's the way most countries have it. It's logical. I think it's the way it should be. So the people have spoken, had actually been thought about before all these things that are happening right now with the division in America of the way they want the government run at very hard times. I don't know how they're going to ever get out of this. I do hope the Electoral College is being questioned again. I would love for them to stop using that as one of the ways for a victor. Okay. You may not agree with me. Oh, this is better because you can actually see it more clearly. So yeah, the people have spoken. I figured this is exactly what I'm feeling. This is the way it should be. Let the people choose their ruler, have a fair election, and whoever gets the most votes wins. Not having an additional contest with the Electoral College concept. So there was that. Okay. Okay, so now there's a lot more I could say, but I think I explained to you basically what this show is all about. Thank you so much for being able to tune into this, and I'd like to thank Daniel Kay and Brenna for this, for helping me here. They're both so wonderful. They're around. Their office is right near mine. I've made many treks to them for all kinds of computer problems and so forth, and they helped me to prepare this booklet. And so this is how this show came to fruition, and I thank you for taking part in understanding a little bit about what it's all about. Thank you.